here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here. Bukavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
And we have approvals of minutes. We'll do these separately. We'll take January 14th first, please.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of January 14th, 2020.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna here. Aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo aye.
Lorick, aye. Bukavich, aye.
Guzikowski aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
And now we have the minutes concerning January 28th.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of January 28th, 2020.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo aye.
Lorick, aye. Bukavich, aye.
Guzikowski aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
Council held an ordinance to amend Chapter 19 of the Municipal Code and to adopt the comprehensive plan of the City of Oak Creek. They will reconsider this at the meeting on February 17th. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. It gets us to our first public hearing, that is 5A, and that is a sign appeal submitted by Monica Schneider, Appleton Signs, on behalf of the Sprint store over on Howell Avenue, specifically at 8171 South Howell. So, Carrie?
I will read the notice into the record. City of Oak Creek, notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the Oak Creek City Hall Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin 53154. The appellant is Monica Schneider of Appleton Sign Company. The tax key number is 813-9014003. The property location is 8171 South Howell Avenue, Suite 200. The request is a variance from Section 170706J2, which states in part that tenants with their own exterior entrance shall be permitted one wall sign. If granted, the variance would allow the applicant to install one 3-foot by 4-inch by 11-foot 8-inch 38.9 square feet primary wall sign on the west elevation of the multi-tenant building on the property at 8171 South Howell Avenue, Suite 200. The zoning of the property is B4 Highway Business District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 22nd day of January 2020. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin, Mayor Dan Bukavich, Chairman. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to speak on the matter, please approach the podium. State your name and address and address all comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open.
Thank you, Carrie. As Carrie stated, this is a public hearing. We'll make 3 calls for anybody wishing to speak. This will be the first. Second call. Third and final call. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium. Give your name and address, please. Seeing nobody on the third call, we will close the public hearing, and we will go on to 6A, which is consideration of the request for this sign appeal for the Sprint store located at 8171 South Howell. Open it up to the commission.
Mr. Mayor, prior to that, could I give just a little bit of background?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The master sign plan for this building was actually approved back in '08. The master sign plan only showed signs for 3 tenants. The north tenant was allowed to have 1 wall sign on the east elevation and 1 wall sign on the west. The center tenant, which is Sprint, was allowed to have 1 wall sign on the east. And the south tenant was allowed to have 1 wall sign on the east and 1 wall sign on the south. So this would just allow the Sprint, the center tenant, to have 1 wall sign on the west elevation as well. There are criteria as stated in your packets for granting sign appeals. Staff does not make any recommendation for sign appeals, and the criteria that the Plan Commission can consider is basically anything other than content. So you can approve sign, location, or size, location, and things of that nature. If you do wish to approve this sign appeal, there is a motion for consideration that's stated at the end of page 2.
Thank you, Carrie. Fred?
I don't see any problem. I see Buffalo Wild Wings has a sign on the west wall, and I would think that there'd be no problem putting the same sign for Sprint.
Okay.
The size of the sign will match the east elevation if anybody is interested in that particular detail.
Anyone else? Don? Chris?
Commissioner Sieper, were you here for the last sign appeal?
Christina, anything? Matt? Dawn?
I have a quick question. Is that door operational?
No, that's the service door.
Do we need to say that? I mean, does it make it look like it's a storefront?
No. I think it actually says riser room on it, or there's some kind of text on the rear door.
Greg?
I don't have any issues with it.
Okay, just to spread a little history on this, a few of you commissioners might have been around for this. Dawn, you might have been here. Fred, when this building actually went in, we were kind of in our infancy of doing the outer rim buildings, and this building existed. I actually think Sprint was one of the first ones in. I think they actually beat Buffalo Wild Wings in. We went back and forth if they needed that because that was an employee-only entrance. And I don't believe we put it in at that particular time. But as things have evolved within the city and what we've been doing, I'm fine with it these days.
Yeah, and back in '08, that ordinance that required, the particular section of code that required multi-tenant buildings to have a master sign plan was brand new.
Yeah, and we were kind of in our infancy, kind of doing signs, but it's kind of new to us, this model of building that they had. And if you've ever been there, it just as an employee parking on its side of the building. Sometimes that lot's so crowded, people are walking around the building. I would suspect that GameStop is probably going to come through with the same type thing. So, but other than that, motion on 6A then, please.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approves a sign variance allowing the installation of one 10 feet by 3 feet 4 inch channel level wall sign on the west elevation of the Sprint tenant space in the multi-tenant building on the property at 8171 South Howell Avenue.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye. Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye. Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
It takes us back to 5B, our second public hearing, and again, that is a sign appeal for St. John's property.
Mr. Mayor, may I interrupt for just 1 second?
Yes.
5B is, or 6B is actually related to this item as well. It's a master sign plan review for the building. Both are required in order to meet the requirements of code as well as the on-file master sign plan, because the master sign plan, again, only allowed for the tenants to have the specified signs as they currently exist. This would just amend that master sign plan for that variance to be reflected for the west elevation.
Okay, thank you. I completely missed that. Great catch. That will take us, I'm sorry, before we jump to 5B, we're going to stick to 6B if you turn your agenda over. And just as Carrie said, it's a review of the proposed master sign plan for the amendment allowing that Sprint sign. So, any questions? I know Carrie ran over that quick. Don, you're kind of looking like
Yeah, so where are we finding 6 p.m.?
on your agenda. It's actually not in your packet that I'm aware of, unless it's, is it?
It's a couple in.
It's a couple in on the packet then?
I guess it's slightly out of order in your packet.
That's okay. But anyhow, that particular property had a master sign plan attached to it, so we have to amend that. Did I say that right?
Right, the master sign plan doesn't allow for any signs on the west elevation, so this just brings both of those approvals, the variance plus the master sign plan together so that they jive.
Odd question, but if it wasn't allowed, how did Buffalo Wild Wings get in?
Buffalo Wild Wings was allowed to have one sign on the north elevation and
And
one
tenant?
sign on the east elevation.
North? You said west and east.
Oh, I'm sorry, the west and the east, not the north.
Yeah, okay. All right. Clear as mud, eh? I confused you even more.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where, it's one of those situations where the master sign plan still has to be amended.
This is, go ahead, Don, ask your,
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm kind of following
Anybody else? No. Christina, anything? Okay. Then a motion on 6B.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approves the amendments to the master sign plan submitted by Monica Schneider, Appleton Sign Company for the multi-tenant building at 8171 South Howell Avenue.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Eldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Okay, that'll get us back to the public hearings at 5B. And again, that's a sign appeal for St. John Properties from Monument Sign located at 140 East Ross and Carey. Would you please read that? All right. All right, Lori, you got this one.
All right. Published January 29, 2020. City of Oak Creek notice a public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held Tuesday, February 11, 2020 at 6 p.m. Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Appellant is Dustin Ekilski. I apologize if I butchered that. St. John Properties. Property location is 140 East Rossin Ave. Tax key number is as noted. The applicant is requesting a variance from section 17.0706D, which states in part that ground signs shall not exceed 8 feet in height and shall not exceed 100 square feet on any one side, no more than 200 square feet on all sides for any premise. If granted, the variance will allow the applicant to install one ground sign that exceeds 100 square feet on one side and 200 square feet on all sides on the property at 140 East Rossin Avenue. The zoning of property is manufacturing districts. All interested parties wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 22nd day of January 2020, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to provide comments on this matter shall approach the podium, state their name and address, and address their comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open.
Thank you, Lori. We will make 3 calls once again, this being the first. Second call. Third and final call. Anybody wishing to speak? We'll now close the public hearing and move on to consideration of that item in 6C, if I got that right. So we'll open it up to the commission. Questions? Christina?
Yes, actually, I do have a question. So I guess I'm not understanding why do we need that variance if we have a certain size that they can abide by? So I don't know if the question will be for you or the
Sure.
applicant.
So this actually exceeds the size.
I understand, but I'm asking why. Why can't they meet the variance?
So this is a directory sign, and due to the number of tenant spaces, there wouldn't be any way to make that smaller and still have the words visible.
And with the location of that new variant sign, would that impact the visibility because it's close to the intersection of Howell and Rossin?
It's actually, the submittal was a little confusing in the beginning. We took it as a ground sign, but technically as we started getting into it, it really should be qualified more as a wall sign.
Okay.
It's attached to a screen wall that blocks their loading docks, and the wall is connected to the building B. So it is set back from the road.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions concerning this particular sign? Fred?
Yeah, I just have a question. I'm just wondering if that sign is big enough to cover the whole facility. That's quite a layout there. There's what, 49 stores or something at that facility? And I'm just wondering if that one sign would be adequate enough to cover all of those buildings or
Suites.
suites, if you want to call them.
The proposal shows that it will be sufficient to provide space for the names for all the tenants.
I think there's 49 suites there that they have.
I couldn't answer off the top of my head how many suites there are. I apologize.
No problem.
Any other questions? Again, kind of something different than we've seen in the past. As Fred pointed out, multi-tenants there. I like the idea of a larger sign. It's tough to see at times. Hopefully it is big enough. I'm not encouraging you to go bigger, but if you feel this works, I'm good with it for the tenants that are involved here. So, and again, in some cases, as the tenants rent out, they may take 1 to 3 suites, depending on the square footage needed. So, any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, motion, please.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission approve a sign variance allowing the installation of one monument sign of 150 square feet sign on the property located at 140 East Rawson Avenue.
Seibert seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seibert, aye.
And item 5C, our last public hearing, again, a sign appeal.
I'm sorry, Mayor, could I stop you? This also is similar to the previous.
Go right ahead.
We do have a sign plan review attached to this as well. That is 6D in your packets.
So you need a variance on that.
No, this is a sign plan
For
review.
the master plan at St. John's
Yes,
property.
master plan.
So same situation we experienced with the Sprint store. So I'll open it up, questions from the commissioners.
So the sign plan review, the sign plan shows also the tenant signage above each tenant space and how some have just one bay. And there's a specific signage requirement for that. And sometimes there's 2 bays that are combined together to make a larger space for tenants.
So there'll still be allowed signage over the tenant space.
Over their entryways.
For me. No questions.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So is this backlit? Are these lit?
I confused you. We're actually on 6D. So we're at St. John's
I am.
property? Okay.
Yeah, look at this.
Okay, so you're going back to the sign.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the individual signs that are above each suite, are those lit?
It says that there is a non-illuminated metal backer plate that will be installed by the developer. I'm assuming that each bay, though, has a illuminated sign.
And you're saying babe, but meaning like suite? Or
Each tenant suite.
Okay, okay. I wasn't sure if
Sure.
you were talking about a truck bay.
Any other questions?
No question.
All right. 6D then.
Guzekowski will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the master sign plan submitted by Dustin at Kulowski at St. John Properties for the multi-tenant building development at 140 East Rawson Avenue.
Lorick will second.
Roll call.
And I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
That'll get us to our last public hearing, which is, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I got to vote.
That's okay.
Yeah, this is not working really well here for me. Aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Yeah. I got thrown with the backlit question because we were talking about the master plan. Never mind.
Okay.
Never mind. That's on me. That's on me. My bad. Anyways, okay, we'll fly straight here. 5C, it's a sign appeal. Again, sign appeal for the east elevation for the building at 9700 South 13th.
Okay.
Lori?
Published January 22nd, 2020. City of Oak Creek, notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held February 11th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Oak Creek City Hall, Common Council Chambers, 8040 South 6th Street, Oak Creek, Wisconsin, 53154. Appellant is Ryan Companies, Candace Falk. Tax key number is as noted. Property location is 9700 South 13th Street. The request is for a variance from section 17.0706, which states that the wall signs shall be no more than 200 square feet for buildings more than 300 feet from the street or interstate right-of-way. And the total number of signs on any one premise shall be limited to one wall sign per tenant per street frontage. If granted, the variances would allow the applicant to install on the southeast corner of the east elevation one 10-foot by 33-foot wall sign on the property located at 9700 South 13th Street. The zoning of the property is manufacturing district plan unit development. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present, dated this 15th day of January 2020. Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Wisconsin. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to provide comments on this matter shall approach the podium, state their name and address, and address their comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing's open.
Thank you, Lori. We will make 3 calls, this being the first. Second call. And third and final call. We'll now close the public hearing. Double check where I'm going. 6E is what we're looking at now, and that is consideration of the sign appeal. So open it up for questions from the commission. We touched on this briefly at the last meeting, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the minutes don't go into too much detail, and I don't have my anything from last meeting. What's the relation to the one from last week? Is this the same sign? Are we
Essentially,
help me out
this
with that.
mimics one of the similar signs on the opposite side of the building. The difference is that this is not facing a roadway, and it is on a large scale. It's 330 square feet, so it does exceed the maximum.
This is a different part. This is the east side. We didn't cover that last week. I guess. That's
No, we
okay.
just focused on the west elevation last
Okay.
time.
All right. Thank you.
Christina?
So this is facing the resident behind it, right? There's a resident area there?
Correct, and the railroad tracks.
Yeah. And you say this is a very large sign.
330 square feet, and we do have on the screen what it looks like
Yeah, I see.
for the elevation.
So why do they need it on the east end if it's really not facing a roadway or anything? What's the purpose, I guess?
In their narrative, they said that they wanted it for passengers on the train.
Okay. Okay.
If I'm mistaken, there's no residence directly to the east. It'll be developable land within the business park and then train, correct?
Correct.
So this won't be exposed to the south.
It's focused on the east, but it's on the southeast corner,
Right, it's on the
So-
south end of the building on the
Yes.
east side.
on the east side, correct?
Correct.
But there are some residents could be exposed to that.
Potentially from a distance, they might see some of the glow from it.
Especially for that large of a sign.
Add anything? Don? What you, Greg? Chris? Don?
No.
What you, Fred?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't have an issue because I think it'll be facing more of the business park than it will affect the neighbors to English Air. So with that, motion.
Seifert moves that the planning commission approves a sign variance allowing the installation of one 10 feet by 33 feet wall sign on the east elevation at 9700 South 13th Street.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Real I.
Lorik, aye.
David, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
All right, 6F, it'll give you something different to consider, a certified survey map for the properties at 7869 South 13th Street. Gary?
The proposal is to divide the property, which unfortunately is still shown in multiple pieces. It is one piece. Its proposal is to divide it into 3 conforming lots for the district. There are wetlands that are shown on the property on sheet 2. However, wetlands should be shown on all sheets of the CSM. There is some language for an access easement, and the same language for clarity and consistency purposes should be used, as was shown on CSM 9148, and that language is cross-access easement area. It's slightly different on the proposed CSM. Stormwater ponds are also, they're on Lot 3 in 2 spots. And there was a question as to whether or not those stormwater ponds should be shown as outlots on this CSM or if they should be shown on a subsequent CSM. The benefits to showing them on this CSM would be you are combining the divisions on one map rather than several over many months or even possibly longer. It would potentially include easements for the benefit of and the maintenance responsibilities per lot for the stormwater infrastructure, and it also would prevent potential encroachment of development into these stormwater facility areas. To get at this, though, rather than dividing the individual lots, it is possible that we just change the language on the Lot 3 to Outlot 3 for now. With subsequent divisions happening at a later date, that could change and you could create lots still. It will be up to the Plan Commission to determine whether this will be a condition of approval or if we're going to designate the stormwater infrastructure on a subsequent CSM as outlots. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the CSM as proposed, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by John Thompson, Highgate LLC, for the property at 7869 South 13th Street be approved, subject to conditions 1 through 3. Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. Open it up for questions.
Yeah, I have
Fred?
a question. They're showing a road pattern in here on the CSM. Does that continue to make contact with the development on the north?
It does. And these are all private internal roads.
Okay, but it will show on the CSM the potential road pattern?
It's shown on the CSM currently what that internal road pattern is.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Matt, anything? Engineering's on? No. Dawn? Christina?
I'm not really quite clear about the combination of the easement of the stormwater infrastructure. Can you just go a little bit over that?
So typically we have stormwater infrastructure ponds particularly in their own outlots. Right now there's being shown as consolidated on the proposed Lot 3. So there was a question raised as to whether or not they should be designated in outlots as part of this CSM for the reasons that were provided, or if it was done in a subsequent CSM. And the way to kind of get at the concerns right now without having to further subdivide these lots is to call Lot 3 an outlot for right now. They could always come back at a subsequent time and redivide the property and change that outlot designation.
Depend on the development and see how the water flows.
Correct.
Anything else, Chris? Don, anything?
No.
No? No, I have no questions concerning this one either. So, motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, prior to doing a motion, if I could get some feedback from both the developer and the Plan Commission as to the designation of Lot 3 as an outlot for now, or if we want to have the stormwater ponds in their own individual outlots on this CSM.
Feeling from the commission?
I think that maybe should be an outlot rather than a lot 3 at this time.
If the applicant could provide their feedback, I'd appreciate it.
The applicant in-house? Not today. Okay, so it's our discretion. Kind of leaning with Fred too. I'm thinking we should go with the outlot.
Mayor,
Yes?
engineering would support that. We're running into that issue on some of the other developments to where they're already impeding in some of the ponds. So as long as we can protect that stormwater, that would be greatly appreciated.
I appreciate that input. And again, if that's what engineering feels best, that would be my recommendation to follow them.
So in that case, then I would suggest that there would be an additional condition that Lot 3 is changed to an outlot prior to recording.
Ready to go? Motion?
Lorick will move that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by John Thompson Highgate LLC for the property at 7869 South 13th Street be approved with the following conditions. Number 1, that the CSM is revised to incorporate all wetland areas on all sheets. Number 2, that the CSM is revised to incorporate the same language for the access easement as was shown on CSM 9148. Number 3, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording. And number 4, that Lot 3 be changed to Outlot 3 prior to recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Carlo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Tanya,
Seifert, aye.
Okay, 6G, review a request for Hotel Associates for a conditional use permit for a hotel on a property in 9315 South 13th Street. Carrie?
The proposal is for a hotel, a new brand called the Avid Hotel. Plan commissioners will recall that a PUD amendment allowing hotels within this particular area was approved by the Common Council January 7th of this year. We do still need those signed conditions and restrictions prior to any further review of a proposal for the hotel on this property, but we did incorporate conditions and restrictions that were approved by the council in your packets for reference. The plan is for a 95 guest room hotel in a 4-story building. It's a mid-scale hotel, again, under the Avid Hotel brand, which is a franchise of Intercontinental Hotel Group, or IGH. The plans right now include a workout room and gym facility on the first floor. There are an estimated 25 full-time equivalent employees anticipated, and this will be a 24/7, 365 operation. This is just giving you an idea of how the access is going to be configured for the proposed hotel. This is a CSM that's showing the division between the hotel lot and also the Steinhoffel's lot. And if you look at the very bottom of lot 1, that includes utility and cross-access easements in there. So that's how the parcel will be accessed from 13th Street. It'll share the existing with Steinhoffel's. They're also showing a total of 100 surface parking stalls for the hotel. The anticipated construction is to begin in the spring and summer of 2020 if approved, and completed in 9 to 10 months with a projected open date of summer 2021. So minimum parking requirements for motels and hotels are calculated at 1 stall for every room or suite, plus 1 stall for every peak shift employee, plus 1 stall for every 3 persons based on the max capacity for each public meeting room and or banquet room. But there are no public meeting rooms or banquet rooms proposed in this particular hotel, which means that they would have to have a minimum of 120 stalls per code. Since the concept plan shows 100 stalls, It would be at the Plan Commission's discretion to determine whether or not this would be adequate for the proposal. Now, I will mention that there was, in the narrative supplied by the applicant, some information based on hotel occupancies in the area. So if we are assuming that the proposed hotel would experience roughly the same kind of occupancy as similar mid-scale hotels in the area, which is at 68.7% in their submitted narrative, then approximately 65 rooms would be occupied at any given time. So that type of occupancy would require a minimum of 90 parking stalls. So we're somewhere between 90 for majority of the rooms being occupied to 120 at max capacity. There has been no formal request for a modification to the parking requirements, but again, it's up to the Plan Commission to determine whether or not 100 stalls is going to be acceptable, or if we are going to be requiring more than the 100 stalls to meet code requirements. Conditions and restrictions, if recommended for approval, would likely include language addressing the parking requirements as well as site and architectural requirements in subsequent reviews. If the Plan Commission feels that a hotel is appropriate for this area and wishes to approve, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit for a hotel on the property at 9315 South 13th Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Plan Commission's review at the next meeting, which is February 25th. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. Give you guys a minute to digest a little bit of this. I'm just gonna start off with questions just really quickly. Seems like an absorbent amount of parking and a little bit of green, and yet they're still short on parking theoretically. Are we addressing any green space that has to go with this development too?
Green space requirements have not been modified, and there hasn't been a request for modification, so there would still be a requirement for 30%. I believe that their stormwater infrastructure, which is shown south of that building and parking lot, is at least conceptually included in that open space.
Okay, that was my next question, if that was thrown in there for green space. Okay. Questions from the commission? Christina?
Yes,
Go ahead.
actually, I have a question. I see two access here off of 13th Street. Are they both entrance and exit, or one is entrance and one is exit?
Actually, I think this is a little bit confusing here. So the entrance is actually over on 13th Street here. What's shown on the site plan is actually two access points off of that internal access drive that's shared with Steinhoffel's. So what you're seeing to the north is actually Steinhoffel's parking lot.
Okay, so there's only one access from 13th Street.
Correct.
How about, did we look into left turns into that property and doesn't interact with the actual road because there's no median there? So where are people going to start to turn left in?
That information has not been provided at this time. However, that CSM did provide that common access. So if there's any requirement per the county for any kind of turn lanes or any kind of modifications to that access, we would require a copy of that approval and those requirements.
I just want to make sure that that's being looked at while we are approving the
Yes.
CSM that's being
And
applicable.
obviously, whatever the county is requiring, they're going to require.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry, Chris, you had something?
Yeah, I think, couple of questions I have. So the green space, I agree, Mayor, I'm concerned about that, but I'm glad that I know we have, what's it, 30% we need to have, or 20, is it
30.
30, yeah. This is kind of a fresh look for this side of town with having a hotel. One of the concerns I have is, could it ever be turned in, or if it were ever sold and used as an extended stay? Is there any language we can have in the document that prevents it from becoming an extended stay?
You can explore that option as part of the conditions and restrictions. Unfortunately, I don't have any kind of language that I can provide you at this time.
Okay. And I do think, though, it is a nice, fresh look. So very contemporary, and
Typically, the types of amenities that are provided in extended stay hotels don't include things like pools and fitness facilities necessarily. That might be one way of getting at it, but again, those are just ideas. We would have to speak internally about what the language would be in the conditions and restrictions.
Yeah, and that's my concern, and my hunch is right now, obviously, it's not gonna be that, but down the road, I know that residents that have contacted me about it, back in the day, there was other conversations about, an extended stay on our side of town, and they weren't happy about it. And mixed opinions about this now, but, it's been approved by the commission, so I think it's a good fit for what we've got here.
Anyone else? Don?
More of a procedural question. So we're looking to a motion to approve the conditional use permit, come back with the conditions and restrictions, and then a public hearing before it goes to the planning commission? All that?
So the process is, if the Plan Commission recommends approval tonight, then in 2 weeks, we would bring back conditions and restrictions for the Plan Commission to review. And then at that point, we would schedule a public hearing before the Common Council.
Okay.
And then any subsequent review that would be required following Common Council approval at the public hearing would come back to the Plan Commission. So site, architectural, all that kind of thing would normally come back to the Plan Commission as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt? Dawn? Greg? How about you, Fred?
I think I'm okay.
Okay. May not be the greatest question in the world, but Assistant Chief Havey, any concerns about the parking and your accessibility with one entrance off 13th? I know you could always utilize the north entrance of Steinhoffel's as well, but given the sea of parking and if they do load up, any concerns? Have you worked with them yet?
Mike Havey, Assistant Chief. We have not worked with them, this group yet. The access are always a concern, but with Steinhoffel's and those access lanes on each side of those, and then the two access lanes that are in the plans right now have access lanes on either the east and west side. Parking, restrictions and access are always a concern for firefighter operations. Nothing specific to this plan yet, though.
Okay, thank you. No, I think Christina brings up some valid stuff on 13th. The county is planning on redoing that road in the near, far future, who knows when. But 13th will get reworked, and hopefully we'd get a turn lane in there at that particular time. So, I have nothing other than that. So, motion then, please, on G.
Guzikowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends the Common Council approves a conditional use permit for a hotel on a property of 9315 South 13th Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Plan Commission's review at the next meeting.
Seipert seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Brillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seipert, aye.
Gets the 6H, and it's a temporary use permit for Ozinga for a temporary portable ready-mix concrete batch plant and crushing operation at 841 West Rawson. Lori. Did I get it right? I got it right. I'm catching on to this stuff.
Zynga Ready Mix Concrete is requesting a temporary use permit that would allow for a concrete crushing operation on the property located at 841 West Rawson Avenue until December of 2020. Plan commissioners may recall that they've come to us several times for the same permit request. Once in March 13th of 2018 and another one in September 10th of 2019. The previous request just expired at the end of the year of 2019. Since then, they've approached staff to issue 3 consecutive 14-day temporary use permits for the same crushing operation. They'd like to bring in front of you the possibility of extending and having a longer temporary use permit that will go to the end of 2020 to meet crushing demands. The details of the operations are all found within your packet. Staff would like to mention, though, while the proposed use is suitable at this location and is consistent with the existing permanent use of this property, staff would like to suggest that the number and duration of temporary use permits makes this use no longer temporary. Staff will work with Ozinga to find a more permanent solution through the conditional use process. And then a suggested motion is provided for you.
Okay. Questions? I think we're all pretty familiar with the Ozinga property. It's been in use quite a bit. So open it up. Questions, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question about cleaning the streets. I've seen that periodically that the road is not cleaned, it's dirty, it's there for 2 or 3 days. How do we enforce that cleaning or make sure that the streets not cluttered with dust and dirt and junk?
I believe as a code enforcement officer, I can go out on a regular basis and look, and also our DPW could assist in those matters as well. But of course, that burden is on Ozinga to make sure that they are meeting the conditions of their temporary permit, which I believe for the previous one was required to do sweeping every single day.
Just as long as it's enforced, that's the way I look at it.
Okay. Don, anything?
No questions.
Chris?
I think they're such a great community company here to have here. I mean, what you guys do to help out the city. I think if we can come through and come around and determine what would be best for in place of the temporary use permit, kind of makes sense. So I would be in favor of however it works.
Christina, anything?
Yeah, actually, kind of to echo what the alderman said, Seeper, I mentioned that concern the very first time they came for that 2 weeks period of a permit, and I have concern with the sweeping operation, and I noticed they have not been sweeping per day as they have indicated they will be, and I have witnessed several cars like the dust like flying the windshield, so I don't know what kind of enforcement we can have, but it hasn't been done.
Is the applicant in? Can you come on up, please? Very quickly. Name and address, please.
Justin Cradiville, 8356 Greenbrier Road, Wind Lake, Wisconsin, representative of Ozinga Ready Mix.
When do you normally send your sweepers out on Rawson?
Should be daily.
End of shift, middle shift? Any idea?
Generally, when sweep all can get into the facility, kind of at the mercy of their demands or, their services for the day. But to my understanding, we've been doing it daily for the production operations. I'd have to check with the operations manager. I'm not at that site on a daily basis, but I'll definitely look into that.
I do live in the neighborhood, and I pass by it every single day, at least twice a day. So I know for sure it hasn't been, not on a daily basis, no. And the tracking is all over.
I can add to that. Kurt Landish, 706 Bass Drive, Waterford, Wisconsin. Kurt Landish, 706 Bass Drive, Waterford, Wisconsin. Between the two entities, Ready Mix and then the crushing, I've personally called sweep all to kind of understand their process. And usually when it's wet or snowing, they don't come out because of the draining of the roads. But we did instruct them via email to come out 5 days a week, whether that be for Ready Mix internally in the parking area and out on the road when they can. So, but we will try to emphasize more out on the road. But we have asked them to do that 5 days a week. 5 days a week.
In better weather, do you do watering too? I don't want to create an ice situation, but do you do watering too on the roads?
Yes, so our Ready Mix trucks have the capability of filling their tanks with water and then hosing down to keep the dust down.
Oh, actually, I have a question for you, Lori. So instead of giving, and I don't know if you guys want to weigh in, can we give the permit less than the end of this year, just until we see how they are proceeding with the cleaning of the roadway. If it's not still maintained, then we don't have to wait till the end of December.
Sure,
to
if you'd like
restrict
to
that. So I'm just
adjust the,
proposing that for the rest of you. just to
Right
get
now,
it
we're going
enforced.
through December of 2020.
correct.
Right, so the permit request was to crush no more than 110 crushing days in the calendar year. So obviously with weather conditions, freezing temperatures, it makes our abilities to crush very difficult. The 14-day window that was granted from January 1st to present, we have crushed less than 40% of the available crushing days just because of the weather conditions, breakdowns, things come up. So the proposal here, obviously, if we can crush and get rid of our inventory, then we won't need to crush for some time, and we can try to crush in conjunction with weather conditions that'll be more conducive. So at the present time, we've requested 110 days, which falls in line with a competitor in the area. Through the rest of this year. So when those 110 days will be utilized, it's just dependent on supply and demand on what our sales team can sell.
Doesn't your crushing goes along with the construction season or no?
Our materials group does not.
No?
No, the crushing application at our Oak Creek facility is crushing all the returned concrete, pure 100% Ozinga return concrete back to the site. We accept no fill, we accept no off-site sources because we don't know what's in it. So we have a stockpile of material, obviously. Once it grows to a certain number, then we come in and crush it just for utilization of our inefficiencies of our crew. So whether that's this time of year or in July, it's just a basis of when we can get it done.
So I guess my input on this, if we want to grant you till the end of December of 2020, how can we guarantee that your roads are going to be swept at all times and doesn't interact with the public? What kind of guarantees we can have?
In the past, we've sent out, our code commissioners or our inspectors have enforced that upon inspection. So, we experience that along 13th at times. We experienced it up on 20th and Rawson when we had a portable batch plant there. So, that's been the history of how we've tried to contain that. I myself, coming down Rawson, the only time I experienced any mess is I physically drove into the yard to drop an award off for Ozinga for community support. Other than that, I haven't picked anything up along Rawson Avenue. Granted, I don't go on there daily, but for the most part, I know the operations are several hundred feet off the yard. The trucks are going to drag some amount out. Go ahead. Oh, you're not on. Press the button.
There we go. Has the city experienced many complaints about the roads not being swept? What's the community's feedback on that?
I have not received any complaints since I started back in June. And I can also say that while I'm doing code enforcement, I do typically travel down Rawson, and I haven't seen it myself. But I can also imagine that not every truck is tracking, and there might be a truck that drops a lot. It's not necessarily always realistic to immediately have a sweeper come up right behind it. But at the end of the day, I can say that I have not seen any tracking around there while I'm doing code enforcement.
And I might add, I've been with this organization or affiliate organizations for 20 years now, and I have yet to receive a complaint for dirt, mud, debris in the roadway. I think we're good community stewards. We do the right thing. Obviously, I'll take a look at things first thing tomorrow morning when I get back into the office, talk to the operations manager, and, if it's freezing temperatures, the street sweeper's it's just not going to be there. But if it's freezing temperatures, we typically, we're not crushing.
And it makes sense, and I agree with Lori, it's not going to be a sweeping truck behind every single hauling truck, so it doesn't make sense. So at least at the end of the day, there should be one just going around by the end of the hauling schedule.
Absolutely.
Again, I think I'm okay with the time limit on this. Sorry, I'm not on here. I guess I'm good with the time limit on here coming into the busy season. These portable batch plants, this isn't unique to Oak Creek. They're going up all over the place along I-94 where needed, basically to limit the hauling and make it more efficient. So I'm okay with the operation. So, okay. Motion then.
Donnie moves that the Plan Commission approves the temporary use permit for a temporary crushing operation at 841 West Rawson Avenue with the following conditions. That all applicable building and fee codes are in effect. That the hours of operation for crushing be limited to Monday through Friday between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. That the temporary use shall expire on December 31st, 2020. That the crushing is limited to Ozinga concrete. No materials from other properties or work sites shall be brought to the site for crushing. That on-site airborne dust and debris control measures are utilized throughout the operation. That the stockpiles are restricted to the locations as shown on the approved site plan and may not exceed 30 feet in height. That any truck traffic associated with the temporary use is restricted to state and county highways. That a street sweeper is utilized minimum of once per day. That the property is returned to its original condition, all temporary equipment and stockpiles removed within 14 calendar days following the expiration of the temporary use permit.
Seibert seconds.
Roll call.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Will I?
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Bukowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Thank you, guys. Next, we have a plan review. I'm sorry. Yeah, we have a plan review for an addition to sunset options for the building and the property located at 904 East Rawson Avenue. Carrie.
Thank you. This is an addition to the existing building, and the purpose is for chapel, restrooms, and a lobby reception area on the north side of the property. This is an existing layout for the site, and what is proposed is this addition here. This is going to be a 51-foot by 35-foot addition on the north, again, connected to the existing building via a small alcove and mechanical room. There's also going to be kind of a covered canopy area for the drive on the east side. You can kind of see the island there. Minimum parking requirements are actually it's the greater of one space for every 4 patrons at max capacity, or 25 spaces per chapel unit, plus 1 space per peak shift employee. So the chapel can actually accommodate 60 to 75 patrons, which would be 15 to 19 parking stalls. And per the information provided by the applicant, there would be at least 1 employee during regular operating hours, which are 8:30 to 4:30, but additional employees may be required during services or visitations. As proposed, everything meets setback requirements. The proposed exterior building materials for the addition will match what is existing for the building. That includes manufactured stone veneer along the base that has to be a minimum of 4 inches per code. That requires a 3/4 majority approval per code. It's for the use of manufactured stone as opposed to natural stone. There's also going to be wood siding to match the existing, and that's also not listed as an approved material. However, with a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission, that can be approved. And then asphalt shingles to match. Now, in the landscape plans, they do not actually show any mechanicals save for an existing kind of gas meter that's on the west side of the building currently. If there are any mechanicals, they must be screened, be that ground, building, or rooftop. That includes transformers, that includes any kind of mechanical equipment itself, basically anything that would be considered a box, for lack of a better word. This on the screen right now is the proposed landscaping plan. Now, what you can see here is that there is some existing landscaping on the east, and then there's some proposed on the northeast. Code requires that parking lots that serve more than 5 vehicles shall be provided with accessory landscaped areas, which may be landscape islands, peninsulas, or peripheral plantings totaling not less than 5% of the surfaced area. In other words, we need to have a little bit more landscaping shown. Also, there are some details that are missing that are required per code. That includes plant coverage, planting height versus mature height, spacing, those kinds of details. So we will work with the applicant to ensure that we get a landscaping plan that meets the code requirements. We also have green infrastructure requirements. Those are being coordinated with the neighbor as well as with the city. We have a request for well abandonment to be coordinated with the utility and with inspection. They are considered a utility customer, so that's something that they'll have to coordinate with the city. And then fire department has actually given us some indication that they will need to review the fire suppression requirements. It was not clear at this time what those would be. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site building and landscape plan submitted by Leroy Stewart Sunset Options for the property at 904 East Rawson Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 7. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Open it up. Questions, Christina? Anything? Matt? Dawn? Greg? Holy cow, I'm batting 1,000 here. Chris?
I'll say that I'm excited to see that. It seems like just, I don't know, was it last year, but maybe probably a lot longer than that. But 2 years ago, you guys were just here to get some other work done, and now you're here to add on. And so you were going to spruce it up to start. So you guys are doing a great job over there, and it's just great to see you want to put the money back into Oak Creek and call Oak Creek your home. So thank you very much. It's a good-looking building.
Don?
No question.
Fred?
Problems.
Is there a rendition of the south? The view of it from the south? Looking north? South looking north? Or is that east?
I don't think we have an exact rendering, but it almost looks like it's going to mimic what's already there.
Yeah. I guess what I'm looking at is what I take as the existing building with that single door before they have the drive up. That'll be, I mean, it's facing east, correct? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not following you.
But what's going to be the view if I'm looking, if I'm standing on Rawson looking north at it? Is that the view?
This is the east elevation.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. What?
So this would, if you can kind of, bear with me for a second, I'll bring up Google Street View.
Kind of weird we got 3 elevations and there's actually 4, right?
Well, the addition is on the north. So that's why you only had the 2 elevations. So this is what the existing building looks like.
Everything's going basically to the back.
Everything's going to the rear, which is the north. So if
Okay.
you can see where my cursor is, that's where
Got it.
that's where that new addition will be.
See the
Yeah.
drive-through canopy sticking out on the
Right.
side.
And the addition.
Right.
Yep.
That one side was just kind of blank. Looks okay. Thank you for that. I needed the visual. Tough night for me up
Hold it
here.
together. No, that was
So I have nothing else. Again, unique little business and love to see it growing. As Chris said, you guys are just in here for a remodel. Yeah, come on up, please, if you want to say something.
So actually, Mr. Mayor, I think this is the rendering that you were looking for.
Yeah. You want to say something, sir? Just name and address, please, for the record.
Steve Ketterhagen, architect of record, 2821 Virginia Street, Racine. I would like to address condition 2, requiring 4-inch stone. 2 years ago, we did use a 2-inch stone veneer, and we were not aware of the requirement for 4-inch. So we wanted to match the existing materials, and we would like to continue to use the same materials we used 2 years ago.
Man, that one's a touchy one with us, ain't it, Carrie?
If it's to match the existing, and if we have at least a minimum of 2 inches, the Plan Commission does have the discretion to grant a modification.
When we get into the drive port or the vestibule, whatever you want to call it, on the columns, could that be 4 inch?
We could investigate that. It's possible, but
I mean, we want the product to match as well. For sure. I get it. You want the belt line to match up, but if we could try to get as much of it right as we can, that would be appreciated.
Staff is okay if the Plan Commission approves of the 2-inch stone.
All right.
So that would
Not a-
that would mean that condition 2 would mean the exterior stone veneer is a minimum of 2 inches thick or deep, however you want to describe it.
2.5 to match existing condition.
correct. It would be the same material
Okay.
that was used for the existing building during the facelift, if you will.
Cool. Deal breaker, I guess.
So, and is to address the wood siding, it was labeled as wood siding, but that's the LP Smart side. It's resistant to water. At this stage, it's an engineered wood product.
Fiber cement.
No,
Party board plank.
no, that's a cementitious siding. This is LP Smart side. It's a new product that's been used in the last 4 to 6 years. It's hitting the scene to replace and compete with cementitious like Hardy or Certainty. You know,
This is recycled stuff.
no, not necessarily. If you look at the back of it, it looks like an OSB, but it's not. It's a chemically engineered wood product that's put together. It's recycled products that are jammed and crushed together. So it's LP Smart Side is a brand name. So I'm sure you're probably seeing a lot of that in your apartment buildings and whatnot right now. So
Familiar with it, Carrie?
I'm not, but that's not to say that it isn't already being used. It's just, it still
Okay.
needs a 3/4 majority approval.
Pretty good. Christina, Matt. All right. Good. Anything else?
no, sir.
Okay. Motion on I.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission approve the site building and landscape plans submitted by Leroy Stewart Sunset Options for the property at 904 East Rawson Avenue with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number 2, that the exterior stone veneer meets the minimum 2-inch deep to match existing materials. Number 3, that the plans are revised to include locations for all new and relocated mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. All mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftop shall be screened from view. Number 4, that the landscape plans are revised to include all requirements per code. Number 5, that the green infrastructure plans are revised to retain all water on site, or that a copy of a signed agreement with the adjoining property owner to allow drainage across property lines is provided to the city prior to submission of permit applications. Number 6, that all water and sanitary connection requirements and well abandonment procedures are coordinated with the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility and Inspection Department prior to submission of permit applications. And number 7, that all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
90 seconds.
Before we vote, fire is still working with them on fire protection and what have you. Is that covered in one of the conditions? Or do we got to make a special note of that? Assistant Chief Havey's coming up to clarify that.
So at this, Mike Havey, AC Fire. What we're working on now is just the square footage of the addition to have that evaluated to see that fire suppression or detection system fits what the square footage
Is the
needs
building
are.
currently sprinkled?
Don't believe that one is.
Mayor, to your question, number 1, all relevant code
That
requirements.
covers it?
Yep.
Thank you. Guess that's what I'm looking for. Thanks, Mike. Okay, roll call, please.
Anna, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, I.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
And J, review conditions and restrictions for Oak Creek Rawson Industrial LLC for a conditional use permit for a freight yard terminal transshipping depot on the property at 610 West Rawson. Gary?
So if you'll recall, the Plan Commission recommended approval of this conditional use permit at the last meeting on January 28th. So what we are here for now is to talk about the conditions and restrictions. If you turn to page 2 of 6 under site and use restrictions, maintenance and operation requirements, it allows all uses limited by the M1 manufacturing district, conditions and restrictions, plans approved by the Plan Commission on November 27, 2018, and all applicable sections of code. No parking of storage of vehicles, equipment, merchandise, parts, or supplies within the designated public and employee parking areas. Outdoor storage shall be limited to the parking of trucks and trailers associated with the business and shall be located in designated and striped stalls in the north portion of the property. That's already in place per the approved site plan. There shall be no storage of unlicensed, non-operational vehicles, equipment, merchandise, parts, supplies, or any other materials. We have requirements for all parking areas to be striped and landscaped in accordance with the approved site plans and applicable codes. Any change to the occupancy of the site or the building shall conform to all building, fire, and municipal code requirements. And the rest is solid waste collection and removal of snow. Those are all the responsibility of the property owner. Under parking and access, that shall be provided in accordance with the applicable code sections, conditions and restrictions, and the Plan Commission approved plans from November 27, 2018. Building and parking setbacks are per the approved site plans as well as the Board of Zoning Appeals decision that granted a variance on November 26th of 2018. Number 7, under time of compliance, the operators of the conditional use shall commence work in accordance with the conditions and restrictions within 12 months of the date of the adoption of the ordinance. And if that does not occur, they can reapply. The duration of the conditional use permit is limited to 10 years. At that point, they may reapply for a conditional use permit. Under Section 10, there is a bit of a typo. It says paragraph 10, under the provisions that allow for revocation, it actually should reference paragraph 11, and that's something that code or staff will change prior to council review of these conditions and restrictions. If there are no other changes required by the Plan Commission, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council adopts the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot facilities within the multi-tenant building on the property at 610 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Anything to say, Brian? Nope, you're okay. Questions? Fred?
Looks good.
Donnie?
No questions.
Christopher? Greg? Dawn? Matt? Nothing from engineering? Christina, got something? What
Yes,
you
I
got?
do. So in item number 3 in page 2, Carrie, because I see there is a wetland area in the surrounding, is there any way we can have another item added here to protect any runoff within the wetlands?
Well, the site plans that have identified the wetlands and constructed the stormwater, those were done in 2018. The site is already built out, so they would still have to comply with local code requirements, and they would still have to apply or comply with all local approvals. So whether that's with the stormwater infrastructure or if there were any, I can't recall off the top of my head if there were any wetland fill permits for this. It was a remediated site.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, like, if they have a snow removal and they put it on the side, that doesn't kind of run off if it melts down into the wetland and have a destruction. So this is, I don't know if it could be part of the maintenance portion of it, or it's just something they need to be aware of once they go into the maintenance agreement.
I think that we already have, is that part of the development agreement perhaps?
Or the stormwater maintenance agreement.
So we already have it included
Okay.
in other requirements.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Just Two things real quick. 24/7 operation. I would imagine it's.
It has the potential for it to be
M1 site.
24/7. They don't have any, as far as I'm aware, there are no tenants for this particular use yet. However, there are prospective tenants that would probably have 24/7 operations here.
They come back on time of operation.
No.
It's an M1 site. I don't have a lot of concern with it. I just want to make sure we're clear.
No, per the submitted narrative, the peak operations were between like 5 a.m. and midnight, if I recall correctly. But trucks are going to come in and out of that facility as needed based on the shipping and operation needs.
Yeah, and who the operator is. And then just in 8, duration of the conditional use. Is 10 years our standard? That's
10 years has been what we've been typically assigning to these conditional uses. They're usually kind of tied to leasing, and 10 years seems to be kind of not necessarily a standard, but a common lease term. Since they don't have any leases at this point, 10 years seem to be, I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for at this point, but it seemed reasonable. And it's also in line with other conditional use permits for similar facilities that we've issued.
okay. Thank you. That's it. Anybody, anything else? If not, motion, please.
Lorick moves that the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council adopts the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for freight yard, freight terminal, transshipment depot facilities within the multi-tenant building on the property at 610 West Rawson Avenue after a public hearing.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Aldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
So very quickly, before we adjourn this weekend, we kick off our Winterfest weekend. So it starts off Valentine's Day, February 14th. There is a date and skate night in the square. We're going to have a pop-up ice rink. There's going to be specials throughout for dining and what have you. There'll be refreshments for sale and all that stuff. So if you're looking for a cheap date, Drexel Town Square is the place to be on Valentine's Day. Followed up on Saturday by our Winterfest, and that kicks off at 10 a.m., runs till about 4. There's horse rides and hockey, and you guys want to help me out? There is a host of things. Ice sculpting going on, ice bars.
For
Laura?
sales of goods.
Sales of goods. There is actually, thank you, there's a winter craft fair. So again, this is our 3rd annual, I think, Winterfest.
3rd annual. And we are also holding the skate park workshop, providing opportunity for the residents to provide input on the last 3 concepts, and that will be set up as a booth at Winterfest.
Thank you for that, Laurie. That's very important. This skate park is pretty monumental, actually, within our parks. We've had one for many years, but we're putting in a permanent one. A lot of effort and a lot of planning's gone into this, so this is the time for public input if you're going to come and get a look at the 3 revisions. So thank you for that, Laurie. Other than that, adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 7:18.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Aldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
All right. Thank you all.